Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Friday Live. This last Friday in in August, the last Friday in August before we move into September. It's crazy how quickly the year has gone by. It's Fiona Lukis here coming to you live on Facebook and YouTube, and I'll be doing whatever I can to answer any questions that you have. And as always, if you are joining me live, feel free to let me know where you're listening from, where you are in the world, say hi, all that kind of stuff. I love to have some interaction with people who are on the call, or sorry, not the call, on the live. Makes me feel like I'm not just speaking into cyberspace. So if you are out there, please feel free to say hi, let me know where you're listening from. And if you have a question, pop it in the comments below and I will do my absolute best to answer that for you. Hi, Lee. Hello, darling. I was just thinking about you. I really was. I was just thinking about you before I went live, wondering how you are. So thank you for saying hi. Really appreciate that, darling. So today, as always, I like to kind of bring in stuff from the client work that I'm doing with the couples that I'm working with, or the individuals that I'm working with, and obviously what's come up through the Q&A calls with the students in my Relatable program. So basically what's going on in my community, because I can see the synergies. Generally what's going on in my community is a reflection of what's going on in the greater world. You know, we are all interlinked, we are all connected, and our energy impacts everything. So generally the patterns that I see in my community are reflected out there, hence why I tend to talk about those when I'm doing my live, and obviously answer any questions that you have. So, you know, if you are listening on Facebook or YouTube, that's where I go live every Friday at this time. So if you ever want to catch up with my next live, just subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Facebook, and you'll immediately get a notification of when I'm live. Hey, Raquel. Hi. Thanks for saying hi, honey. Welcome to you. Hey, Nick. Hi, darling. Hello. It is bucketing down here, freezing. It's a really cold Melbourne winter day today, but that's okay. It's a good time to snuggle up and be warm and cozy, as I am in my little office with my tea. And I've got some great questions here to share with you, so I'll get stuck into those in a minute. But, you know, one thing that I want to talk about, and I've seen this kind of come up a bit especially with my couples this week. So the couples that I've been working with this week, I've really seen this come up, and I've seen the power of it. And I wanted to just address this a little bit because this is so important. I've devoted a whole module to it in Relatable. But, you know, our capacity to listen and be present is, I cannot emphasize the importance of it, and it is something that we're not very good at. Like as a general rule of thumb, most people are not good listeners. And even if you feel like you are repeating exactly word for word what someone has just said to you, that's not a sign that you're listening. Okay? Most people tend to think, if I can repeat the words back, I've listened. That's not the kind of listening that I'm talking about. I'm talking about deeply listening to a human being, where you are so present to their reality that you no longer, you can actually feel where they're coming from. You can feel their energy. You can feel the feeling they're in. Now, most of us would not be able to say that we're able to do that. And I cannot tell you the difference that makes in your relationships, no matter who you're in relationship with, whether it's with your children, your partner, a family member, yourself, right? Your capacity to get quiet, tune in, and listen is incredibly powerful. I just came out of a session this morning with a couple that I'm working with, and we were talking about this, and I was helping him see where he hasn't been listening and he thought he had been, right? And, you know, he was very receptive to what I had to say, but she was so moved because she said to me, I finally feel seen and heard for the first time in, 30 years. I feel seen and heard. I feel like you see me, you get me, you've heard me. And it was quite a profound thing for the two of them to see within one another.
because in her mind, in order to be heard, I've got to fight for my position. I've got to fight hard for that, right? And of course, if you feel like you have to fight to be heard, it's going to put you in an adversarial frame of mind, and it's really hard to create connection from there. So I was helping facilitate this with the two of them, and it just struck me again how important it is that we are able to listen. And it is the one thing that I see with human beings where we will think we are better at than we actually are. And one of the things that gets in the way of that is how busy your mind is. And so as I was helping them see today, as his mind got quieter, I said, can you feel how quiet your mind is now? And he said, I can. And I said, can you see how that is so much more of a safer space for her to voice how she's feeling and feel heard? And he goes, I can see that. And she said, yeah, I feel like now is a safe space for me to talk. Now is a safe space for me to connect. And that's just because his mind had slowed down. Now, if we don't understand state of mind, we don't understand when we're present, if we think we are when we're not, which I'm telling you is how most people think. Most people will say, yeah, I'm present. Most people would say I'm listening, but they're not. They're really not. And if you don't have that awareness, it's hard for you to change or do things differently. And so I cannot tell you how important this is. You know, there's a quote by one of my previous mentors, and I have this in Relatable, and the quote is, listening is the unsung hero of connection. And I love that. It's like, you want to feel connected to another human being. Listen deeply. Listen in a way that you've never listened before. Now, in order to be a good listener, right, there's kind of these background things that need to happen. You need to know how to get over yourself. Okay, most people aren't listening very well because they're too busy defending themselves, justifying themselves, trying to fix something, trying to make it better, and they're not present and they're not listening, right? And so, you know, if you are in defensive mode, if you are in justification mode, if you are in you've got to listen to me mode, you've got to I need to explain myself to you mode, you are not listening. You don't have the capacity to listen. You don't have the mental and emotional bandwidth in order to be able to listen well. And so this is a skill. I can't tell you. It's a skill. It's a way of being. It's a state of mind that I think every single one of us needs to learn how to do well. Because when we are good listeners, and this is true of work, this is true of parenting, this is true of everything. When you're a good listener, what you create is connection. Now, when you feel connected, people relax. People feel understood. Their state of mind changes. They feel safe. They feel seen. They feel heard. And I cannot tell you how important your capacity to do that is. Most people are not very good at this. And so, you know, there's a lot that gets left unsaid, and there's a lot of opportunity for connection that gets missed. So, you know, if you're in a relationship that feels disconnected or there isn't a strong level of connection, the quickest way to change that is to be present and listen in a way that you like, really present and listen. You do that well, you will create connection. You know, when I was, it was another couple I was working with this week where a similar thing came up, and she was saying to me, you know, Fiona, I feel like I'm listening, but then he just keeps going. He just keeps kind of saying the same thing, or he repeats himself. And I said, look, generally when that's happening, if you are in a conversation with someone who's repeating themselves or who is kind of saying the same thing, you can be pretty sure that the reason they're doing that is because they don't feel heard by you. Right? People generally repeat themselves. People will generally say the same thing again. People will generally bring up something from the past and throw it in because they don't feel heard. Okay? Now, the only way you will know if the person around you feels heard is by asking them. Right? You can think that you're doing a great job, but, you know, we are our own biggest blind spot.
Okay. And I say that with love to you all. It's true of me as well. We are our own biggest blind spot. And so the only way you actually know if the other person feels heard by you is you have to ask them, right? You have to check in. Do you feel heard by me right now? Do you feel like I'm listening to you? Do you feel like I'm listening, right? Because you got to understand, we overestimate our capacity to listen. We think we're better at it than we are, right? And so we can be kind of saying to ourselves, I did that well. I listened, I know what they said. I heard them. But really, you actually don't know whether you listened well until you ask someone. And, when I realized how poor of a listener I was many years ago, that was one of the things that, because I had a capacity to be 10 steps ahead in a conversation than where my husband was. I was over here and he was still here. And so I got used to asking him that question. Do you feel like I'm listening to you right now? Because I couldn't tell. In my mind, I thought I was. Now, if you're going to ask a question like that, just be prepared to be okay with whatever the answer is, right? And sometimes my husband would say, no, I don't. And I'd sit there and go, wow, I really missed that. I thought I was doing way better than I actually was. Okay. And so then, you've got to then approach that from a place of neutrality and curiosity. So I'd say, okay, where to help me understand how I'm not listening to you. What do you not feel heard by? And again, this is me exploring someone else's reality. This is me putting my own stuff down, leaning in and listening to somebody else and getting a sense of how they see the world. Really important thing to do with your kids, really important thing, because I don't work so much with kids now, but when I was, that would be the biggest thing children would say to me. Mum and Dad don't listen to me. So I don't bother talking, especially young teenagers. Yeah, I don't tell mum because mum goes into fix-it mode. She doesn't listen to me. Or Dad stopped listening 5 minutes ago, so I just don't bother, right? And so I cannot tell you how important that is. Now, when you're listening well, the feeling that you generate between the two of you is incredible. It's an incredible feeling. It goes beyond any thoughts that you have in your head. It's such a deep feeling of understanding, connection. Whatever word I put around it will not do what I'm saying justice when you're deeply present and listening to someone. And it is a rare gift these days, especially these days, because people have got so much coming at them in life, so much that we're digesting, so much information, so much stuff, right, that takes up all of our mental and emotional bandwidth. Hence why some of you who've been listening to my lives for a while or following me for a while will hear me say, this is why you need to understand how we work as human beings. Because when you do that, when you have that understanding, when you understand how we create our reality, and we all create our reality exactly the same way. Yes, we express it differently, but we create our reality exactly the same way. The internal mechanisms on how on our psychological functioning are the same between men and women. They are not different. Now, yes, there's some biological differences. I get that. But the way we create our reality, it's very interesting when you understand it. Now, the reason why you need to know that is because you will know when you have mental and emotional bandwidth and when you do not. And there are a lot of people out there who think they have mental and emotional bandwidth when they don't, right? And so then they don't even have the capacity to listen. And then they try and have these conversations where either they don't have the capacity or the other person doesn't. And then you wonder why the conversation goes south. This is why when I'm doing couples work, I work with people separately so that they can start to learn this stuff, so that when they do have a session together, they understand these sorts of things, and so they can bring something differently to the session. They're like, I've taken care of my mental and emotional bandwidth, so I can be present, so I can show up, so I can, all of those things. And in that session together, and we can generate something really, really powerful, which is exactly what happened this morning. Very powerful, very, very powerful. Okay, so look at all these lovely messages. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for saying hi. So appreciate it. You've got beautiful sunshine in Sydney, but vicious winds. Perfect washing weather. Yes, that's true, Nick. That's true. Oh, it's cold and raining there for you. Is it, Lee? You know, this is like the last weekend of summer for you guys, or close to, right? Because you guys have got a long weekend in Canada. I hear it's Labor Day there. I know this because the couple I was working with this morning were telling me. Oh, it's 19 degrees. Okay. It's like 30 where they are. You must be in different parts of Canada, obviously. Hey, Penny. Hello, darling. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hello, beautiful lady. Back to you. Deezer. Hi, honey. Our energy is everything. It really is. And it is such a big blind spot for us. Nick, always being seen and heard is one of the most beautiful things about the relatable family. Yes, it really is, isn't it? Yep, we do that. We bring that to each other. Which is why many people say that this is a space that's quite unique and precious, because it's a space that you don't find very often, where people have put their ego down and they are listening deeply, and people feel seen and heard. Yeah, so important. Peter, hello, Fiona. The irony is that you have to learn to be a good listener to others, yet at the same time learn not to listen to the avalanche of your own thoughts that often are not reality. Yes, very true. Becoming a reader of the room is very important to me, and then knowing what to do or not to do is so important. I think you taught me this. Well, Peter, you have certainly shown in our community and everything how beautifully you listen and what you generate. So that's absolutely... you epitomize that in so many ways, Peter. So thank you for sharing that. Yes, in order to be a great listener, that's what I mean by having the mental and emotional bandwidth, right? When your mind is racing, you don't have it. And there's this avalanche of thinking. It's like all this thinking between you and the other person. There's you, there's two people, there's you, and there's the other person. And then in between is your thinking and their thinking, right? There's that people are trying to listen through. And it gets in the way, and it filters out so much. When we're present, though, right, our minds get very quiet. That's why we talk about a quiet mind, because in a present moment of now, my mind is not racing because I'm not thinking about the future. I'm not worried about the past. In a present moment of now, my mind slows down. It slows down to the speed of life, right? This is very important. Your mind, when you're present, in order for it to be present, okay, it can't be present any other way, slows down to the speed of life. Life has a speed. And when you slow down to the speed of life, you slow down to the speed of love, because love is the speed of life. And so this is why we talk so much about the power of being present. And you will feel it in yourself. It's a very different feeling. It's a very different feeling. It's a feeling of fulfillment. It's a feeling of calm. It's a feeling of peace. It's a feeling of gratitude. It's a feeling of, I don't need anything in this moment of now. I literally don't, because I'm so present to a moment of now. And it's where our ego becomes quiet. Our intellect is quiet. And in that moment of now, because everything is quiet, we hear more. We're more expansive. We have this mental and emotional bandwidth. We have the capacity to read a room. We have a capacity to step inside another human being's reality, right? I do talk about this. I've got a chapter devoted to listening in my book, Funny Little Human. So if you haven't bought it, feel free to, I do talk about this in this book. And obviously I've got a whole module devoted to this in Relatable, because it is so important. Your capacity to be a good listener will have ripple effects in your life that you cannot possibly imagine. Because as human beings, connection is this innate need that we have. We need it to thrive. When you are someone that generates that for another human being, okay, the feeling of that is indescribable. The feeling for you and the feeling for them. It's a win-win. Now, people who do that well through work, and I know that, say, for example, with some of my children's teachers, the teachers that have been good listeners have had a far bigger impact on the class than the teachers that haven't. I've seen it with, when I've gone into businesses and worked with businesses and teams, the person who is the great listener or who's a good listener creates a relationship with everybody in the team that's very, very different to people who do not. People who listen well are great leaders. That's why, parents who listen well create a fantastic family unit that has synergy and connection where there is a lot of understanding and love, and people have their back, right? Because, when you listen well, the level of goodwill, the level of trust, the level of love, the level of intimacy, both mentally and physically, goes to a completely different level, right? The biggest blockage to intimacy is a busy mind. The biggest blockage to opportunity is a busy mind. I never appreciated that as much as I do now through the gift of this understanding. I cannot tell you now, because I have such a deep appreciation of that, I'm very protective over my state of mind. So if there are things that are going to come into my state of mind and take up all the space and room, I'm not interested, because having clarity, having mental and emotional bandwidth is super, super important to me. Because when I do that, I show up differently. I show up differently to any and every moment of now. I show up differently to my husband. I show up differently to my children. I show up differently to my dog. I show up differently to life. I show up differently to myself. If we simply listened well, if we did nothing else but that, the depth and quality of our relationships would transform. Okay? Just doing that will transform a relationship. Lee, yep, last long weekend in summer. Well, I hope it's a good one for you, honey. I really do. Hey, Catherine. Hello, darling. Hi, Fee. Yes, it's such a precious space. Yes, it is. Oh, thank you, Lee. I love your book, Fee. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And so I want to put it out there. Anyone who's bought a copy, you leave me a review on Amazon. I've got a lovely free meditation I created that complements the book. Just send us an email, and we will send you out a free copy straight away of that meditation. So if you have bought one and you've left me a review, or you haven't left me a review, leave me a review, please. It's so important. It helps people find my book, and I so appreciate it. So there is a free meditation there for anyone who's done that. Lee, a quiet mind is an open mind, I find. It's amazing how much more wisdom you can hear and how often your heart gets touched. Yes, so true, honey. When you're present, your mind is quiet and you're listening, you become so deeply moved by things in life. Like truly, you do. You become so deeply moved by things in life. I can't tell you. And this sense of filling up from the inside out happens, that sense of fulfillment. People who feel fulfilled have far less expectations of so many things, and expectations cause us so much disappointment and pain. Right? Truly, this is very true. Catherine, I had an incident at work this week which would have sent my previous self into a spiral, but I took the time to slow my mind and truly listen to the answers of my questions, and everything worked out beautifully. Oh, I love that, Catherine. Thanks for sharing that, honey. That's awesome. Good for you. So true. When you get quiet and you slow down and you see the power of it, you have to see the power of it to appreciate it, right? You have an experience of that. You slow down to the speed of life, which means you slow down to the speed of love. You're very deeply moved and touched by things. And I mean really simple things. Like I can be walking down the street and I might see an older couple holding hands. And I will just be like, oh, it's the cutest thing ever. Like, I just love it. And I feel deeply moved by that. Now, when my mind's racing, I won't even notice that, right? Because when my mind is slow or quiet and has slowed down to the speed of a moment of now, I look at it, for example, let's just go to the example of a couple holding hands. I look at that couple who are holding hands, and what I see is not just two people holding hands. I see a history. I see care. I see connection. I see how much they enjoy each other's company. I just see so much in that moment. I get a sense of the feeling they're in. All of that hits me in a split second, and I get deeply moved. Now, when my mind's racing and busy, and I know it happens to us all, I still have a very busy, racing mind at times. I don't have the bandwidth, the capacity, or anything to see, notice, or feel any of that. And so I might notice and go, oh, that's nice. And then it's gone and I'm on to the next. Right. So there's no depth of feeling or connection. And so therefore I'm not as moved. And that's just how things work, right? But, to me, being moved by things is really important to me, because the feeling I get from it is indescribable. And I want to be in that feeling more, because the quality of the feeling you live in determines the quality of your life, right? That's it. Quality of the feeling you live in determines the quality of your life. And so knowing now what is on offer in terms of the richness and depth of feeling I get to access, when I know that's what's on offer, I'm like, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Like, I'll just have more of that, thanks. Right? And of course, being able to bring that to my husband or my kids or myself or whatever, and it also enables me to be of greater service. That's it. So to me, it's like, why not? Why wouldn't I want to have more of that? And as so many of my students see, and many of them are here on the call, are sharing that that's what has occurred for them in their own lives as well through the Relatable program. So very, very cool. Thank you for all your comments, everyone. Oh, thanks, Penny. Best book ever, life-changing. Oh, you're too kind, Penny. Thank you, honey. Thank you. Now, I just wanted to check in, anyone listening who hasn't commented, or anyone who has commented, whatever, is this making sense, what I'm saying? Can you see the power in what I'm talking about, and the power of being able to deeply listen? And to know when you really are, like, actually have the awareness to know that you are deeply listening, and the impact that has on your relationships, the impact it has on the level of connection that you generate, and how connected people are to you, the amount of how safe and how seen people feel around you. So all of those sorts of things. Can you get a sense of that perhaps from what I'm sharing? Because you're struggling in a relationship, just focus on that, on listening super, super, super well, and see what the ripple effects of that are. Because I'm telling you, it will make an enormous difference to the amount of connection, goodwill, love, trust, all sorts of things between the two of you. So important. Now, probably got time to answer one more question super, super quick, because I've got another session coming up very soon today. Today's just been one of those days, really busy day. Okay, let me just take a look at that 1 second. There's quite a few questions here, so I'm just going back to all right. Hi, Fiona. I've been following you for a while, and your perspective has really helped me calm down the overthinking in my marriage. Okay, great. But I still get caught in old patterns, like I'll be doing great, then one little comment from my partner and suddenly I feel defensive and distant. Why does it feel so hard to stay in that calm place? I know it's possible. Oh, that is such a great question, and I think a question that so many of us can relate to. So thank you for asking it. I really appreciate that. How do I stay in that calm space? I think the thing you have to understand is you can't, right? As human beings, the one thing you can be guaranteed of is that we are always going to be changing. Our emotions change, our thinking changes, our perspective changes. And so, yes, that's right, Nicole. I like that. Yeah, because we are funny little humans. That's right. We're funny little humans, okay? And our minds race. And so when our minds race, our perspective changes. Our thinking changes, and when our thinking changes, our reality changes. When our emotions kick in, you got to understand, we are not designed to stay in this perfect calm space every moment of every day. That's just not how it works. All right, it's not, and it's never going to be the case. Right? You could go into a deep meditation. Right? You could go into a really deep meditation. The minute you come out of it, right, your perspective is going to change, because your thinking mind kicks in, your intellectual personal thinking kicks in, and it starts taking over, and you see things. You go back into the past, and you grab hold of things, and this is just what human beings do. But I think the most important thing here is, this is why it's so important to know when you have thinking you can trust and when you have thinking you can't trust. Right? When you have healthy thinking, when you have unhealthy thinking, when you're in a healthy state of mind versus an unhealthy state of mind. And that's just 3 different ways of saying the same thing. All right? It's just 3 different ways of saying the same thing. You have to know that. And to me, this is a missing piece that many people don't know. All right? They don't know when they've got thinking they can trust. They think when they're very, very upset that that's the thinking that they can trust. And that's not necessarily true. So, knowing that helps, because when you have those moments where you're feeling triggered and defensive and all of those sorts of things, you can move through that experience in a very different way. In other words, you can have that experience without that experience having you. And, when you can have an experience like that, where your thinking changes, your mood changes, where your experience changes, but you are not so affected by that, okay, and this is possible, where you're not so affected by that, then your behavior doesn't become a reflection of that. And that's where, you have less and less of those moments of doing or saying something dumb, which we do because we're funny little humans, doing or saying something dumb, or doing or saying something that you don't mean, and then having to kind of navigate your way out of that afterwards. So the key to it is this: you are not designed to stay in a calm state of mind permanently. That's just not how it works. All right. So our experience is constantly changing. Our thinking is constantly changing. Our reality is constantly changing. But you have to understand, most of what you think is unreliable. Most of your reality, well, every reality is a made-up reality, okay? There is no such thing as one reality. There isn't, we've all got different realities. And so it is important for you to know when you have thinking you can trust and when you have thinking you can't trust. That will enable you to navigate through that very, very, very differently. Lee, that is a game changer. Knowing where you're at gives you the chance not to react. Yeah, it gives you choice, right? And that's what we're looking for in those moments of now, really. The choice to choose something else. Now, it's hard to see that choice that you have when you don't know the difference between healthy and unhealthy thinking. When you don't know when you are in a state of mind you can trust versus a state of mind you can't trust. It's virtually impossible to see that choice. I know that firsthand, right? I could never see that I had the choice. So anyway, I hope that answers that question. And for those of you who want to know more about my Relatable program, I'm putting the link here. You can find out everything you need to know. Any questions, enroll, whatever, you can do so via that link there. We'd love to have you join our Relatable family and the growing community that we have around the world of people who are living from this understanding and seeing amazing changes ripple out in their lives. Peter, my mantra, the more I slow, the more I see, the more I put down, the more I'm free. Cool. I like that. That's very cool, Peter. The more I slow, the more I see, the more I put down, the more I'm free. So true. That's it. Emotional freedom. To me, emotional freedom is the key to everything. I might get that tattooed on my forehead. Maybe not your forehead, Peter, maybe your arm or something. But people would ask me what it means, and right there, the ripples begin. Yeah, that's true. People would. They would ask you. He is our resident relatable poet. This is so true, Nick. Peter, you are the resident relatable poet. I love that. I need to put that on a T-shirt, I think. That is very cool. The more I slow, the more I see, the more I put down, the more I'm free. Very cool, Peter. I love that. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, everyone, for sharing in today's live. If you have a question that you'd like me to answer, you can send it to hello@fionalukis.com.au and just put Friday Live Q&A in the subject line, and we will put it on the list of questions for me to answer next time I'm live, which will be next Friday. Otherwise, if you want to just jump straight in and join our Relatable community, please, the links are there. You can do that. If you've got any questions about Relatable, you can always send me an email or book a chat. There's a link to book a chat with me about Relatable on the sales page there as well. All right, everybody, sending you so much love. Thank you all. Thank you, Raquel. It's cool, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, there's lots of cool stuff inside our community. So thank you all, everyone. Sending you lots and lots of love. I will see you all next week. Take care now. Ciao.